everyone, and welcome to The Poll, the show where we talk about the comics that came out this week. Now, of course, this week's happens to be San Diego Comic-Con, so we're going to keep this show a little bit shorter because it's going on right now as we're speaking. Not that we're there, but we can imagine in our heads, can't we?
Yeah.
I am joined, of course, by my co-host Joel from...
Hello.
I was like, wait, he's going to say hi. I better hold on. If you want to find more of Joel, you can go over to Twitter, @CapeJoel, and see what he's doing over there. But, some comics came out this week, and we thought we should talk about them. So, why don't we start with Secret Empire. Joel, I didn't get a chance to read this one yet, so just go for it.
It's unfortunate you didn't get to read this one. I think you would really dig it, and I will explain why. As far as feeling bad about not being at San Diego Comic-Con, the thing I always like to do to try and create the feeling of being there is I just like to really, really shrink my personal space and just go elbow to elbow with nothing, is what I like to do.
Ah, good.
I feel like I'm really there. So yeah, Secret Empire, following the major follow to the previous issue, the Avengers Rebellion base came under attack by Hydra. Mm-hmm. They had a rat in their midst. They had an informant who was giving out info to where they were, and they should, by all rights, evacuate all just the regular everyday people that they have with them. But Cap, he's a tricksy hobbit, that Cap, and he's like, they're gonna fight each other because they always fight each other. I know, and I've kind of been masterminding this.
Okay.
Is what's gonna happen, and they have like this whole like usual suspect moment of like, you're the rat, we all could be the rat because we all have really good reasons for doing it. Mm-hmm. And then the coolest thing happens. What is it? They kind of do a bit of a swerve, and again, I don't know if this was true or if this was just what I was reading into it. But we saw Mockingbird talking with assumedly Hydra in the previous issue, mm-hmm. So it's like, she's the rat. But now she's like, no, I was actually keeping up with Maria Hill is the thing. And then Ant-Man says he's the rat, but we don't know if he really was the rat or if he is just, taking the heat for everyone else. So they'll, punch him, be mad at him, and then go to actually start saving people.
Okay.
It's a thing. I'm not quite sure on my first reading. I feel like I might need to read that one again.
All right. That's fair.
But the other big thing about this issue is we finally get the return of Bruce Banner, the Hulk.
Yes. Yeah,
and
they teased that last time.
They do. Steve has them all locked up, and Steve gives them like the big Hydra recruitment speech, whereas like, all those other heroes, they think they're so much better than everyone else. They're not like you and me, Bruce. They don't know how to handle true strength. You need to join me and destroy them. And Banner steals the goddamn issue, and he's like, wait, Captain America, you work for Hydra now? How long was I dead for?
So, okay. All right, so yeah, they did bring him back. They 100% brought him back, but he exists now kind of outside the scope of kind of the, like, rapid-paced changes that have occurred.
Oh, well, he doesn't remember anything since he's been dead. This is literally him just getting brought up to speed right now by crazy Captain America.
Are we doing, like, a recap issue?
No.
Okay.
It's much more interesting than that. So yeah, he gets him up to speed on. It's like, I'm working for Hydra, and you got to join me, Bruce. And Bruce is like, no, you crazy man. What is your problem?
That's
and he's like, but don't you hate the Avengers? They're always firing you and blasting you off into space and killing you with arrows.
Well,
Shouldn't you?
That was the Illuminati who did that one.
Yeah.
And that wasn't really even their fault at the end.
It's a complicated issue. It's like, don't you want revenge on the Avengers? And Hulk's like, no, because I'm a hero, and the Avengers are my friends. And you're the head of a fascist totalitarian government. Yeah, you might make a couple points about heroes fighting each other too much, maybe being too involved with their own issues. But at the end of the day, you're a goddamn crazy person, Steve. And Cap does not want that.
Just real quick, do they ever talk about, like, Bruce, did you really ask Hawkeye to shoot you?
No, they don't ask that, actually. Although Hawkeye is actually featured quite prominently in this, because eventually Steve is just like, well, tried working you in Banner. That didn't work for me. Okay, he just basically presses a button and goes, okay, Hulk on now.
What?
Yeah, so he, like, basically drops the Hulk on the rest of the Avengers and is like, okay, go kill them now. This was my ace in the hole, go do your thing. And when Hawkeye sees the Hulk, he completely clams up, is the thing. He's like, oh, this is what it's all been building to. This is my punishment. This is how I'm going to die. I deserve this. I deserve this. And then the Thing swoops on in and saves him and says, hey, get your head out of your ass, Clint. Remember how to be a hero for a second and go help all those regular people we've been sheltering. And Clint has this amazing moment of like, yeah, wow, the Thing is right. Yeah, I need to remember to be a hero. I'm going to go help people now.
Okay, so Bruce is like, Cap, you're a crazy person. But, like, the Hulk, when he becomes the Hulk, is just like, bah.
Well, the Hulk is...
mindless monster.
Back to pure rage. They just dropped him in and pointed him, essentially.
Gotcha.
You know, the Hulk's not like, me love Hydra now, me smash for Hydra. No, that didn't happen.
How did they get him to Hulk out?
I assume that whatever crazy Hydra science they use to resurrect him also allows them to control his Hulkness.
That's messed up. That is messed up, because you could have just really lobotomized Bruce Banner if you were just going to do that.
That's a good point. I assume, like, in the back of his mind, the real Steve is kind of in there somewhere. And he's like, no, I don't want to lobotomize Bruce. Bruce is my friend. Bruce will listen to me. I already got Deadpool and the Punisher on my side. Surely I can get him on my side.
Right? Real quick, Muad Shali, thank you so much for the incredibly kind comment of saying that the best podcast on YouTube, and of course for the super chat. Very kind of you. Thank you.
Damn right. But yeah, it's kind of a thing where it's like, on one hand, this is like the darkest moment for the Avengers Resistance, and yet on the other, there's these real, like, bits of light that start to poke through, like, you know, heroes remembering to be heroes and remembering to put their differences aside. I didn't even talk about the prologue. There's a whole prologue in the beginning where Daredevil and Kingpin put their differences aside to help hungry people under the dome.
Okay.
That's a whole thing.
They're doing an awful lot.
Oh, God, yeah, they are.
We'll talk about that later, but yeah.
Yo, they're doing a hell of a lot. They defeat the Hulk in a very interesting manner, or at least they keep him busy enough for them to escape. Nick Spencer is sure to pay reference to another Nick Spencer story. Early on in his Ant-Man run, there was a whole bit where they fought the villain Egghead, who had gotten a bunch of, like, Hank Pym Avengers LMD robots that he was keeping. And Raz, the new Giant Man, is like, you know, I kept these robots around because I didn't know if we would need them. I think we need them now. And he sends an army of robot Avengers after the Hulk, and they do this bit where I'm like, oh, this is Ulysses' vision from Civil War II. It came to pass, but he killed robots, not the real ones.
Okay.
And
that's interesting.
They kind of do it with Spider-Man too, where it's like the other champions are like, I don't know if we need to keep backing Black Widow. She seems to be going off the reservations. She seems to be going a little kill crazy. But it's Miles who's like, look, no matter what the others say, I'm going to stick by you, Natasha, because I feel at the end of this I'm going to meet my destiny one way or another.
Right. Which is, like, kind of funny, because it's like, even if you haven't worked with Black Widow before, she kind of has a reputation. I'm not really sure what they thought was going to happen.
It's true. Well, they kind of have that with Nadia, who was also part of the Red Room experiments, and she's like, look, I didn't let that stuff define me. She did.
Right, but you knew that already, but so you didn't think this was going to be like some, like, road trip where you guys all went and, like, camped out and sang Kumbaya around the fire. You knew she was going to try to get stuff done, and you seemingly were on board with it, which we all kind of thought was kind of weird, especially for what you stand for. And now that it's actually happening, you're like, oh, the rumors are true.
Yeah, well, they say the final straw is that, Black Widow got Viper to work with them now, so now they actually have a member of Hydra on their team, and they're like, nope, too far.
Right, but at the same time, it's like you have to use, like, it's for the greater good. Like, you have to use the tools around you in order to topple regimes sometimes. Like,
and that's everything Natasha's been saying, like, look, kids, war is a contact sport.
Yeah, it's also complicated. Like, war becomes this whole thing beyond, at times, not always, but, like, beyond, like, black and white. Like, there's this whole huge gray area, right? And, like, sometimes to get a win, you have to, like, she's willing to do the things nobody wants to do and get her hands dirty.
Yeah.
Because it has to be done.
Yeah, absolutely. Thor gets a nice moment because, of course, Thor is still on the Hydra Avengers. He sees Hawkeye leading the group of regular people out of the hideout, and he thinks, like, oh, is Thor going to stop them? But he's like, no, go, Clint, run. So now Thor has had a face turn now, and Thor decides, maybe I'm sick of Hydra shit right about now.
Okay. Well,
So
that
he remembers what it means to be a hero.
right. Now, of course, we're not certain what's going on with Jane.
She's trapped in another dimension.
Right, and like, but we know that Hydra's kind of taking credit, or
Yeah,
whatever,
or something.
So I'm wondering how he'll skirt that issue, or if he's just gonna respect her being like, you know what, at the end of the day, she wouldn't want this.
It's true. That's kind of seems to be what they're playing with it.
Okay.
We know by reading the Avengers tie-in that Jane is fine in the other world. She's okay, and she'll get back under her own power at some point.
Right. Now, of course, for her that's easy, but if you can't, Thor may not realize that, or Odinson may not realize that. So of course he might have actually, been like kind of, about it, but like hopefully he is coming around and just being like, you know what, this is not what she would have stood for. I can't let like the world go down like this.
That's very well said. And then the big finale piece of this issue, the big finale confrontation is that while all the heroes are escaping their base as Hydra attacks, Hollow Tony opts to stay behind because he's like, I need to go grab the 2 pieces of the Cosmic Cube shard that we got. I can't allow these to fall into Hydra hands.
Okay.
And he gets clotheslined by like Captain America, who's waiting there for him to also get it. And they essentially restage their fight from the original Civil War. They even have the great shot where he's shooting repulsors and he's getting it with his shield.
Okay.
And like Cap royally beats down Hollow Tony, and they kind of have a funny moment where it's like, oh, they said you were pretty advanced holographic AI. Now I see you really are. It's a shame I won't get to kill you all over again.
I was gonna say Hollow Tony better be the one that stays behind. He's like, I'm not alive.
Yeah, that's basically
not
what
in the traditional sense. Like, that brings up the whole like question of like androids and artificial intelligence. Like, where does life really begin and end?
It's true. Is artificial intelligence real intelligence? And you think like, oh, Tony, who's been so cruel and so cutting, I bet he's gonna have some great, one-liners to throw Hydra Cap's way. He goes the other way completely on, and he's like, you know what, Steve? I'm sorry. I'm sorry I couldn't save you. I'm sorry we were always butting heads. I'm a man who can build anything. I can build amazing wonders. But at the end of the day, my greatest feeling is I couldn't inspire these people the way you did, Steve. I couldn't be their hero. And I'm sorry because you, Captain America, you're my hero.
He couldn't build friendships.
Yeah, I couldn't build friendship. I'm sorry I failed you, Steve. And it's like, wow, what a touching moment. And even like Hydra Captain America is taken aback by this, where it's like, whoa, is he really saying this? And then Hollow Tony says, commence Operation Clean Slate, which is he put a bunch of explosives in the hideout and is like, well, gonna take you and me both down with us, Cap. Only Cap gets saved by his magical ace in the hole, his weird Oedipal mommy figure, Elsa St. Clair, who to save him has to use her magic to banish him, and we don't know where. But he kind of gets blasted away as the base blows up, and it's like, oh, shit, Tony almost got you. Tony almost ended this.
Wow. Okay, so do we get any of those flashes to the other story? Okay.
Yes, we do.
I wonder if she banished him to something like that, or,
Is this what happened? Well, here's the thing. We get to see Steve meet with the Red Skull in the weird dreamscape. And Red Skull remembers everything about Steve, remembers all their adventures, even remembers that it's Steve who put him there.
Right.
But Cap doesn't remember Red Skull, and when he finally works up the courage to ask Red Skull, where am I? Red Skull says, isn't it obvious, silly boy? We're in hell. Wow.
Okay. Well, if only Dr. Doom were there, because he knows all about going to hell.
Oh, man, he goes in and out of hell all the time. He'd have this sorted in 10 seconds.
He's got, like, easy pass for there.
Fast pass for hell, so you don't have to wait in lines for damnation.
Exactly, because who wants that? You just want to get it going. I'm looking forward to reading this issue. I gotta tell you, so far, like, the slow burn of this, like, arc, or this story, it hasn't been warranted yet, but, like, now that we're into it, and more is actually happening, and questions are starting to be answered, kind of in a backwards way, I'm much more interested in this. I do kind of wish that they had kind of condensed some of the earlier stuff, instead of taking so much time, because that extra time, if it hadn't used that, we wouldn't have to have had extra issues, because every time you start doing that, it just makes it seem like you didn't plan this out well, you know? But, like...
Well, it's like you say that, but then we also had a year of Captain America that was just like, okay, here's setting up how he took over the world and how he made it work.
Exactly. Yeah, at the same time, but that was in the one book, right? Like, you could read it or you could not. This is spilling over into other things.
Right.
So, but again, I'm still excited. I'm excited to read it. I know this is not something that everyone is on board for, especially with the slow burn it had at the beginning and just how dense it has been.
Oh, yeah.
So, and with all the tie-ins and all that stuff. So I am interested to see how this kind of all wraps up and where it leads and how much, if any, impact it has on the Marvel Universe.
I'm going to come out and say this. I think this was my favorite issue of the series so far, if only because we're actually starting to see the heroes win a little bit, and we're starting to see some lights in the darkness. And moreover than that, I think this one is hitting home the idea of what Nick Spencer is trying to get across, and that is Captain America and Hydra were only able to take over America because the Marvel hero community is so fragmented and so constantly at war with another. And if they want to overthrow him, they're going to need to A, remember who they are, get their heads out of their asses, and B, they're going to need to all come together to fight the good fight.
Right. All right, there you go, guys. That was Secret Empire this week. Woo!
Yeah.
Thank you, Joel, for, of course, going over it and reading it.
Pleasure.
Again, I'm going to have to get a chance to sit down. I got to tell you, that one takes a lot. Like, not like it takes a lot of, like, out of me, but I'm like, I have to focus on this. Just like when we're reading any of the stuff leading up to Metal, like, I'm like, I have to be able to focus on this. It's not something I can do when anything else is going on distraction-wise, because it's just...
It's meaty.
It's meaty. That's exactly what it is.
It's a lot to digest.
It is. And I'd rather take the time to read it once through properly instead of being like, ah, crap, I gotta go back. All right, so from Secret Empire, let's talk about Superman number 27 this week. On the heels of a very interesting issue last, the number, I guess, 26, where we did a little lesson learning between father and son, a little comparison between Pa Kent and Clark, and, of course, Clark and John. Really cool. Now we're seeing an exhausted Superman. He's tired. He's been saving everybody at all times. The family's honestly been through a lot, and on top of all of that, of course, Superman always feels that he has to keep the world safe, which I gotta tell you, this was one of the first times that I ever considered the fact that it's just like, at some point Superman does have to sleep, but he strikes me as the kind of guy who it's like, how do you know when to stop?
And I mean, being Kryptonian, it's not like he could just drink some black coffee and energy drinks to stay awake.
Exactly. I don't even know what we give to him. But you know what I mean? Like, when does Superman feel like it's okay to go to sleep? Because there's always something happening around the world. There always could be someone in peril. But I just had never really considered it before, and then this time around, I was like, wow, yeah, no, the man has to sleep at some point. But of course,
in half his uniform, which I like, he's just like, oh god, I can't get off all my work.
Like, I got the shirt off, good enough. Leaving the boots and the
carries both his wife and son to bed over each shoulder.
They tried so hard to stay awake. But of course, Lois is the one that realizes this family needs a vacation. They need to go. They need to get out. They need to, like, drive, essentially, to different historical areas, which, of course...
They need to have a National Lampoon's vacation.
I know. I thought that was really cute. And, of course, because of the fact that she is kind of a military brat, of course she would think to do this. Rents the RV. Surprises everybody. Says, we're gonna do this, and that's that. John is like a typical kid. He's super excited, immediately sees the TV. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna have video games. Like, and it's like completely misses the idea of the family vacation. And they pretty much, they just pack up quickly and they take off, and they decide that here's the list of places we could go. Everybody's gonna pick 2 and we're gonna go. And then we proceed to pretty much get something we haven't really seen, which we have seen, like, lessons between father and son. We've seen lessons between family. We've seen the lessons of a child kind of dealing with power, essentially, the power of Superman. But now we're seeing these, like, lessons that are somewhat part of, I guess, Superman in a sense, because a lot of people consider Superman to be an all-American hero.
Icon, yeah.
Yeah, and certainly that's
he's as American as apple pie. His costume is red and blue. He's just missing the white.
Yeah, exactly. So I do wonder how this did for anyone who isn't within this country, because they very much,
This was the America fuck yeah issue is what it was.
It was and it wasn't, because it's so funny.
It's a little nicer than that. They tone it down a little bit. It's not as in your face.
No, it really is. It's very much like the like, yeah, America, but like what the ideal of it is, what the ideal of Superman's America is, like what he wishes for it, and in a sense in the world, like for the world, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we see them talk about the, like, I'm sure many of us have seen them before, but the coexist bumper sticker explains what that's all about. Just the idea of, like, you know, coming together, you know, and just being able to be like, it's cool. We don't have to have the same beliefs. It's totally fine. Whatever.
Which, you know, I can't think of anything more American than getting life-affirming lessons from bumper stickers.
No, it's true. But what I liked about that
it's a nice message.
It is a nice message. We get to see the idea of like women in war. We see the idea of not glorifying war, to understand like what it is and how horrifying and scary it is for those who actually fight in it, and how, like, sometimes, not always, but like the media tends to make it look, oh yeah, no, and they were all badass and cool, and certainly that can happen, but like at the end of the day, like, it is a terrifying thing, and those of us who've not been a part of it don't necessarily quite get that.
Superman and his family share a meal with a wounded vet, and, you know, it's like, oh, you know, I got hurt in Iraq in 2003, which was a really nice moment. And then, of course, my nerdy brain is like, hey, Superman, why didn't you stop that war in 2003? I'm just saying, you're Superman. You probably had the powers to do. You probably saw it was more based on oil, but, you know, whatever.
Or maybe he did in his timeline.
That's right, exactly, because this is kind of a Superman from another bit. You're right, Tim. Maybe he did.
But yeah, I mean, overall, like, it's funny. And initially, like, I was kind of like, this is kind of a weird, interesting, you know,
road
issue?
Trip history
like,
lesson.
Yeah, like, I wasn't, this kind of blindsided me, honestly. Like, it just kind of came out of nowhere. And then I thought, you know what, though? Like, that is Superman, in a sense.
Yeah.
Like, this is one side to his character. The other side, of course, is the side that punches things and flies around and saves everybody and burning buildings and cats and trees and flies into space and all that stuff. And then there's this side, the side is like, here's the ideal.
Yeah.
And, like, this is what I wish. And again, I feel like this issue isn't going to hit everyone the way I think they wanted it to, because
it's probably the most niche issue they've done so far.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. But at the same time, like, going off of the back of the last issue, which, like, you know, was very much learning for, you know, John and Clark, so is this. You know, like, this is John learning a lesson by seeing the world with his family. Very family-based issue. You know, which I kind of, like, I was like, cool, because we just get off of the whole Manchester Black thing. You know what I mean? And, like, so we had a lot of fighting and craziness, and yes, family there, but this is the other side to it. So
the family needed a vacation. They're like, look, readers, you need a breather too. So here's a nice little 2 and done, which is something they've been doing across the DC Rebirth line. Here's a 2-issue little breather story.
Right. I also really enjoyed right at the end when John falls asleep, they put him to bed, and
that was cute.
Immediately, like, Clark's like, hey, you want to watch this, look at the stars and make out? I was like, that's so cute to still call it that with his wife. Like, I thought that was adorable. I thought that was very Superman. I noticed some people did mention the art. It was fine. It wasn't the best this time around.
It has been better.
It has definitely been better. And I know they're continuing this road trip, so I'm kind of interested to see, are we gonna keep getting little lessons? Are we doing where are we going with this, guys? Where are we going with this?
Yeah, they called the next issue The Unknown Soldier, and I'm like, oh, are they gonna meet the Vertigo character, the Unknown Soldier? That'd be funny. And an Unknown Soldier tells them about America.
Right, but no, here's the thing. I know they're going to DC, so I don't know. But again, this kind of feels like this is kind of like a little bit of the palate cleansing that they do in between. Like, he can't always be punching, is basically what this is saying. Yeah. Like, sometimes he's gotta, if he's going to tell John that he has to use his brain and he has to think things through, he has to think about the world around him, then
and know about the world you're saving, which I like.
Yeah, exactly. We have to see him doing that and showing John. So I appreciate that to some degree, but again, like, I think this is going to be kind of a weird issue for some people who may not think about Superman in this light, and B, don't think about him as just an American icon.
The chat's calling it cheesy, and I'm like, it's American cheesy on apple pie is what it is.
I was gonna say it's very like it's to me this is Superman cheesy because every once in a while Superman is super cheesy. So
which I like that aspect of, and I like they're honoring that aspect.
Yeah, and here's the thing: what I like about it is he doesn't have to be like that all the time. Like this Superman that we've seen so far sometimes hits that note, and other times does not. And I kind of like the balance. So again, this was one of my favorite Superman issues, but I appreciate it for what it was.
It's also clear that this was probably supposed to originally be slated for last week, which was July 4th, and Wednesday was the 5th.
Yeah. Yeah.
In fact, if you go to the solicitations on the DC website, they're out of order. So it's like, oh, this was supposed to come out last week, wasn't it?
Yeah, and that definitely felt like that. So
which that might have, the story might have been more palatable with a hot dog and a beer and fireworks in hand.
Yeah. This was almost an Orrin Rockwell painting. But anyway,
it absolutely was.
So there you go. That was Superman number 27. Now let's go back over. Let's swing on over and talk about Spectacular Spider-Man. You're actually going to get back-to-back duty here, Joel, because the next one is also one you read. So go ahead. Tell me about Spectacular Spider-Man.
All right, so continuing the Chip Zdarsky new Spider-Man series, everyone really loved issue 1, and I'm happy to say a lot of what you loved continues here in issue 2. It's Spider-Man trying to get to the bottom of these hacked Stark phones that all of these stick-up men criminals have been using. And here's the thing, maybe you made the same mistake I did, Tip. In the previous issue, he runs into what I assumed was someone in an Iron Man armor, like someone dressed as Iron Man. It was actually neither. It was Riri Williams Ironheart. The artist just forgot what Riri's suit was supposed to look like.
Oh.
And there's a new artist in this issue.
Oh my god. Here's the thing. They need to get some more editors. They need to get some more people who are paying attention to this kind of stuff, because artists and writers are going to make mistakes. That's why you have these people here to be like, oh, no, you can't do that. That's not what it looks like.
It was a pretty serious mistake where I'm like, really? That was supposed to be Ironheart at the end of that? Wow, I totally got that reveal wrong. So yeah, he comes to her because he was able to track some of the hacks from the cell phone to her place. So he just shows up at her house in suburbia in broad daylight dressed as Superman. Or not, as Spider-Man. Yeah, he shows up as Superman, which is really messed up.
Which is like, can you even do that?
Peter Parker just trying to confuse everybody. But yeah, he shows up in broad daylight dressed as Spider-Man, and Riri's like, dude, what the fuck? You cannot come to my house like this. Why don't you just put a giant target on me going, superhero lives here?
Yeah.
I thought you cared about secret identities and shit, man. And he's like, oh, okay. And Spider-Man meets Hollow Tony for the first time. And he is totally unimpressed by Hollow Tony, going like, man, you're almost as annoying as the real Tony.
Well.
And Riri's like, well, how do I even know you're the real Spider-Man? There's so many spider people running around these days. And Tony's like, no, it's him. He has a bad sense of humor. It's him. Don't worry. So they like bust each other's balls for a bit. There's a lot of continuity gags in this, both in the story and in the margins.
Okay.
Like they do the little like, hey, if you haven't been reading, check out blank. But Chip Zdarsky makes them like big long jokes where like Spider-Man's like, oh, I always got along with Captain America better. And then in the little box is like, Captain America is now a sleeper agent for Hydra in the Secret Empire. So no, Spidey, he's not a good dude.
Oh, okay.
So there's some funny bits with that. There's of course all the stuff going on with his CIA sister Teresa, who has now come back into his life.
Yeah. What's going on with that?
So they do like a big long thing where it's like, hey, if you missed the original story, this is what happened. And apparently the same mentalo abilities that made Teresa think Peter was her brother in the first place, then made her forget, they've essentially just worn off now.
Oh, okay.
Now this is troublesome because in that same story, the Kingpin also found out that Peter Parker was Spider-Man, and the Knot sister says, man, sure hope Wilson Fisk doesn't figure this out the same way I did.
Oh my god, alright, yeah, good, yeah.
That could suck. And all while this is going on too, Peter in classic Peter Parker luck is like, oh man, I gotta make my date with that lady comedian while all of this is going on. Oh wait. Right. And he's like, oh wait, she's going on a date with Spider-Man, not Peter Parker. So he throws a suit jacket on over his Spider-Man costume and goes and meets her at Starbucks.
Brilliant. It's a good call.
Oh, there's a brilliant scene where the barista's like, okay, $6. Like, $6? Do you have any idea who I am? I've saved New York how many times? And the barista with just no humor, like, dude, come on, man. It's New York. I used to be on the New Warriors, and you don't see me getting free coffee. So they sit down, they have a talk. We learn a little bit more about the lady comedian. She's Canadian.
Wow, that's awesome.
Coming to New York, and I'm like, wow, if I didn't already love this, like, 6-foot-tall Amazon comedian lady with the pink hair, she's Canadian, too. Chip Zdarsky, have you been reading my dream journal again?
He just pops in behind you. Yes.
Yes, I have. And of course, Johnny Storm, who's really mad at Peter for missing their bro movie date they were having and making him babysit the not sister at his apartment, just comes to the coffee shop and tries to ruin his date. Where it's like, it's getting really hot in here. It's just the Human Torch fanning fire at him.
Right.
And then he steps on in and says, hey, lady, I'm Johnny Storm. I can actually have a date out in public with my face while being a superhero, and you don't even have to worry. Unlike Spider-Man, who's putting your life in danger right now. And it's just like, geez, Johnny, way to cock block me, bro. Come on, seriously, what did I do?
Wingman, not this.
Oh, he's very unwingman in this. And then he goes, who's watching my not sister right now? Don't worry, I got Karnak to fill in for me.
Oh, what? Why is that the person you call?
Well, hey, Johnny's been hanging out with the Inhumans. I guess he had Karnak on speed dial.
Seriously, that's the first thought. Karnak.
Karnak will do this. The man can find the flaw in everything.
Yeah, exactly. Like this plan of having him watch the Not Sister.
But yeah, real funny issue. It eventually comes. Riri does some back checking. It's like, look, I managed to track down to a general area of who I think is hacking these phones for all these criminals. You're not going to like it, though, because it seems to be emanating from a building owned by Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin.
They have been using Kingpin a lot in all of these books. Like,
yeah.
lot.
He was inactive for quite a few years there, but now his thing is on the rise again.
I know, which is funny because it's like you think that would have been shortly after his like span on Daredevil, but like that's been done, and all of a sudden it's just like Kingpin.
I think that Matthew Rosenberg series, everyone's like, man, Kingpin's awesome. We should do more with him.
Right. I mean, it could be that he is going to be doing the whole mayor thing or the running for mayor or whatever. So it could just be they're just trying to get in, start using. They're like, nah, you can use him. It's fine. Like he's active again. Go for it. You want to use him?
It helps too that this story is basically a sequel to the original sister story, wherein Kingpin was the villain anyway. So it makes sense to reuse him here.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. I guess Zdarsky has the best reason to have him just randomly show up, as opposed to other books where it's just like, okay, yeah.
But yeah, overall, I thought it was cool.
That's awesome. All right, well, there you go. That was Spectacular Spider-Man. You still enjoying the book overall?
Oh, yeah, it's nice to have a funny, happy-go-lucky Spider-Man book again. Because, I mean, like, there's many things to describe the Dan Slott book, and I've been enjoying the Secret Empire tie-in, but fun and easygoing was never one word I would use to describe it.
Right. All right, there you go. You know what, though, while we're still over here in Marvel Land, which we're going to be here for a little bit, why don't you tell you read Luke Cage this week?
Yes, I did.
So what's going on with that?
Well, it's funny. I had the new X-Men book in my hand, Astonishing, and I'm like, sworn off all the X-Men books, but this one looks really good, and Charles Soules is writing it. Should I read this? Everyone's going to be covering this one anyway. I'm going to cover Luke Cage because I want more people to read this book. Fair
enough. All right, there you go. And we even kind of mentioned the X-Men. There you go.
We did. There you go. Book looked okay. I leafed through it. Everyone's saying it's great. I'm sure you'll have a fun time. But yeah, Luke Cage, you'll remember like a couple months back, I talked about the first issue, how Luke had to go to New Orleans to bury Dr. Bernstein, the doctor who gave him the procedure that gave him the bulletproof skin.
Yes.
And it all got very horror movie very quick because this rich family's like, oh, he was helping my sick son. Come to our creepy manor house in the swamp, Luke Cage, and stay forever. We love you so much. And Luke, rightly so, is like, well, I'm getting out of here now. Thank you.
Right.
Only to be attacked by someone with a blade that could actually pierce his skin. He was then saved by Warhawk, who was the first person that Dr. Bernstein ever experimented on, Mitchell Tanner, who went very much insane. because of the experiments. And we discover that apparently Bernstein was being a bit of a naughty boy down in New Orleans. He was giving procedures to everybody. He gave them to the rich, like old money people. He also saved the life of the most prominent mobster in New Orleans, his kid, by giving him Luke Cage procedure, essentially. The only problem is there's an issue. Basically, Luke Cage was the only one who turned out perfect. Everyone else, eventually, they get mental degradation, rage, and go insane and become monsters. You know, like you do.
I hate when that happens.
The doctor was treating them with injections and everything, but then he seemingly died or disappeared. And it's quite a mystery. And Luke is going around and meeting all these people the doctor worked on. And it's kind of like he's discovering a family he never had, where it's like, you know, we were basically Bernstein's children. He called us his children, and you were the favorite brother. You were the prodigal son, but you're back now.
Would you say he was the chosen one?
He's basically the chosen one. Luke is essentially the chosen one. So he has to team up with one of his worst enemies, Warhawk, to fight the mobster's kid. This ends up being really bad because now the old money guys are back involved too, and they found yet another brother with the same procedure. And they're like, look, if you want to be big power players in the New York underworld, go kill Luke Cage for me. Here's a blade that cuts him. He can't make it out of New Orleans alive. We need him because he's apparently got the blueprints for all the Bernstein stuff in him.
Right. Okay. So, you know what's interesting is, like, they're clearly, like, we have to have a Luke Cage book. Defenders is coming out. But it doesn't have to necessarily follow what we think Defenders is going to do, or, you know, just that general tone, which I think is good. It's, you know what I mean? Like, I get it, you want to have that, but I kind of appreciate them being like, we're just going to kind of do our own thing, which is even separate from what's going on in the Defenders comic that Bendis is writing. So,
yeah, it's a good time. It just is a fun read. I've always enjoyed Luke Cage and stuff. This is a good little series. David F. Walker has a real flair for dialogue, and especially Luke Cage's own inner monologue.
Okay. So is he crossing over with any of the other, like, Defenders characters at all, or he's just kind of solo on his own?
He's in New Orleans. He's as far from New York as possible on his own and cut off from everybody.
Is he married to Jess in this, or?
He has not mentioned Jess. You would figure if he was going all the way to New Orleans for a funeral, he might want to mention it to the woman he's married to and has a child with.
You would think.
Hey, honey, gotta go to New Orleans to bury the doctor who did horrible jail experiments on me that gave me my powers. Bye.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm sure it's not that they're not aware. It's just it probably doesn't have a place to naturally come up in conversation. That doesn't make it seem forced. Like, oh, I gotta call my wife, Jessica Jones, who has my child at home. So that's interesting. All right, you still digging it? You like?
Oh yeah, this has quickly become like a thing. I had a new X-Men book in front of me, and I had Luke Cage issue 3, and I'm like, I think I want to read Luke Cage issue 3 instead.
There you go, guys. He chose Luke Cage over the X-Men this week, but
check it out. I love David Walker. I want him to get more work, and I thought this was a really tight book.
Nice. That's awesome. So, all right, well, still staying within the Marvel scope. Really kind of briefly, I'm going to talk about Doctor Strange number 26. So we're still doing Secret Empire stuff. This has gone from a tie-in to like a tie-in arc for him. You know, of course, we've had the change in regime of writer-artist team to Dennis Hopeless and Nico Henriksen. I have not been the biggest fan of Hopeless is Strange.
Nope.
And I know others like it. I know that a lot of people enjoy it. They enjoy the humor of the characters. You know, I've heard people saying they really like Kingpin. They really like Strange. They really like Spider-Woman. It's not for me. But that's okay because Donny Cates is going to be taking over Doctor Strange.
You got your wish. You prayed to the right old one, and your best case scenario happened.
The Vishanti have blessed me with combining God Country writer and creator Donny Cates and Doctor Strange, and it's just awesome. But I'm still going to keep reading this. We're still stuck in the bubble We're still working as a team. That's what I think is throwing me off so much. I get that, like, there are people with him in the bubble, but this is almost less a Doctor Strange book and more a look at the like really cheap version of the Defenders.
Yeah, they made that the street level tie, and I'm like, why Doctor Strange though?
I know.
I mean, I'm glad my Daredevil didn't get interrupted for it, but still.
Right, yeah, no. And Daredevil is in this, and I think for me what it comes down to is a lot of Hopeless's characters tend to have a very similar voice to them. You know, they all speak very similarly. They all have this very nerdy quip machine thing going on. Like, everybody's a nerd in this, which is fine. Like, I love that, right, to some degree, except that you know, in last issue Kingpin did a whole Gandalf thing, and in
yes,
this issue,
he did.
Daredevil references Slytherin, and then Ben Urich references LARPing in D&D, and Jessica recognizes that she knows what that is. Like, I'm just like, it can't be everybody.
Yeah.
Especially characters that doesn't make any sense for. So, like, that's been kind of getting to me a little bit. Mordo's written in a way I haven't really seen before. He's kind of impatient, which is fine to some degree, but, like, I don't know. It's just, they're building towards something that doesn't seem to need to have this much build. This issue really is just Mordo being like, yeah, Doctor Strange lived, whatever, but that was just luck, and who cares? But, like, we're gonna go trounce him now. I'm gonna use all my magic, because don't forget, Mordo did have magic, which was established in the original Doctor Strange run that was going on. Hopeless in this does act as though Doctor Strange's library is fine, which was not true. They were building things back up, but he's just like, nah, it's fine now. So we have the whole, like, magic has a cost. Magic, you know, takes, you know, a bit out of you, essentially. In this, they're very specific about that. It's very much the, you know, the devil episode from Rick and Morty, where it's like,
classic one. Needful things.
Yeah, exactly. If you use this, then you're going to end up, like, having this, that, and this. And that's kind of how this is, in a sense. Like, to me, Aaron had set it up where it takes a physical toll on you. And this is more like, there's one, they go over a bunch of items, which I thought was I thought was fun. Like, we talked about mystical items, and that was neat. And one of which was a necklace that let you raise an army of ghost bears.
The best kind of bear.
That was awesome. And the price you paid for that is once a month you would turn into a werebear. And for me, I was kind of like, winner right there. That's awesome. I don't really see the downside to that one.
Ghost bears, werebear.
Yeah, once a month you're forced to become a werebear. Oh. Maybe
how
that's
unfortunate.
Just me. I just didn't see that was such a big deal.
I mean, a month is a long time. You could plan a whole vacation around being a werebear.
I know, right? Like, you know, that would work great in Canada, right? Like, once a month you drive out into the snowy woods and you just become a werebear. And you're just racing through the woods as a werebear, and it's fun.
I live in the sticks anyway. It's not hard. I wouldn't have to walk far from my house.
I'm just saying, for me, that was the one they should have used. Of course, Wilson Fisk, having used that skull-looking thing, now has a, like, smoke demon attached to him.
Okay.
Which makes him, like, more evil than before. But essentially, Ben Urich being the purest, like, one of the purest people that Doctor Strange has ever run into, sees that there's, like, this crazy White Knight, like, armor there, and inevitably he puts it on and he fights Wilson Fisk as the Smoke Demon, and the Smoke Demon's like, I respect you. Because we need Wilson Fisk in this, so whatever.
Smoke demons are well known for being very respectful. Now answer me this question.
Yeah.
Wilson Fisk in this book, about how big is he is the question. Is he, like, as big as he was in the Matthew Rosenberg solo series, or has he gotten, like, cartoonishly big?
He's a little cartoonishly big. He's kind of like, he's like a wall of a man.
Okay, because he's cartoonishly big again in Secret Empire 6. I'm like, he wasn't that big the last time we saw him. He just looked normal.
He's like a square with no neck.
Okay, at least there's some continuity with that. I guess he's eaten better than anyone else under the dome.
Right? He's storing it all. It's fine. Of course, Baron Mordo starts to wage war on what's left of those who are within the dome. We've kind of stopped dealing with anything else that was attacking under the dome. It's really just Mordo now under control, like controlling things. And Luke Cage and Cloak and Iron Fist show up, and he dispatches everybody. Iron Fist takes down like looks like a really scary, gross dragon, but of course it fights back. It's not actually dead. He hits Luke Cage with a bunch of different vehicles, which kind of knocks him out for a little bit, including Daredevil. He takes the bubble that Daredevil's in and he uses Daredevil as a weapon. He just hits him around. And then he ends up, like, Cloak's plan is to use what's left of Dagger's power to transport Mordo somewhere else into his hell, essentially. He's like, we gotta get rid of him. And, like, Mordo's like, that is an awesome idea, and just traps him into a book. So now Cloak is trapped in a book.
That's unfortunate for him.
Because don't forget, Dagger's the thing that's keeping the
everyone
light
alive.
Yeah, essentially. So basically, at the end of this, Strange has put together like an original Defender-style team, but no one has acknowledged that. Because you got the Smoke Demon who's like on board for some reason. You got Ben Urich in his magic armor, and Jessica Drew is in a magic prop plane that appears, because why not? And he's just like, I can work with this, herp. So, for me, this is like maybe not as long of a story as it needed to be, because we did a lot of padding for things, and again, like, this is less of a Doctor Strange book and more of a Doctor Strange in the Defenders book. That's just what it comes down to.
So you loved it, is what you're telling me.
No. I mean, like, I get it, and I appreciate the idea of putting him on a team, but it comes down to, I feel like Hopeless he wanted to write for these characters. Of course he wanted to write for Spider-Woman. He was writing for her, and now these characters are trapped under the dome. He can use them. He can write for them. It's just, he's going to be on it for such a short amount of time. In this, Strange started to talk a little bit more, like, comfortably, essentially. You know what I mean? Like, it felt like he started to kind of get where he wanted to take the character, but everyone else just has a certain sameness to them, and I'm just like, it's a little unfortunate. Like, everyone kind of has like this Spider-Man style edge to them, like classic quippy Spider-Man. So
right,
it's not for me, but I do understand the appeal for others, and I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. It would have been interesting to see him not having to write for a Secret Empire's tie-in arc, essentially.
Yeah.
I feel like he kind of got the short end of the stick, but I'm excited for Donny Cates. So, yeah. There you go! Doctor Strange doing things there. Done.
Yeah. It was a thing.
It was a thing, and I read it, and that's fine. Now we're gonna move on and talk about the other big thing that came out this week, Batman.
Yes, Batman.
With the continuation of Wojar.
Yep, Wojar rages on.
So Joel,
it's a thing.
Go ahead. Tell me about Wojar. I read Wojar. I gotta stop calling it that. But I can't.
It's a good acronym. War of Jokes and Riddles does not roll off the tongue.
No, Wojar. So there you go. Tell me.
Okay, so this is basically. It's funny. I rarely read other, like, comic book websites and comic book blogs and everything, but the thing I was seeing for these, because I didn't even trust what I felt at the end of this issue. I'm like, I need to see what other people say about this. And the big consensus I got from this is like, well, Batman number 27 sure was a nice little breather issue from the War of Jokes and Riddles. And I'm like, how can you take a breather from an issue, or from a series that's only 2 issues in? Issue 26 felt like issue 25 all over again.
Yeah.
How can we take a breather, I wonder?
I know. I am surprised. I'm truly surprised by this. I'm like, it comes down to, is this a thing on purpose? Is there timing involved?
Yeah.
Like, does something need to hit at a very specific time that we don't know about at this point? Or is this just, I don't know. Like, King felt like doing this, whatever.
This felt like a tie-in, is what it felt like.
It really did.
And I mean, the event's going to take us all summer to finish, so I'm like, I guess he had time to spare. This issue is essentially Kite Man Begins, the secret origins of Kite Man, a character who, if you've been reading the run up until this point, you'll know that Tom King has an affinity for Kite Man. He's kind of like his running gag that he keeps coming back.
Right? It's absolutely true. Tom King has a fascination with this character and decided to bring Wojar to a screeching halt to tell us about his fascination with this
Oh,
character.
yes. Charlie Chuck Brown, which I know for a lot of people, they didn't even know enough about Kite Man to know that was his name.
Yeah.
Yes, everyone. His name is Chuck Charlie Brown.
Brown. And I gotta tell you, if any classic comic strip character was gonna become a supervillain, it would be Charlie Brown.
Well, that's kind of the ultimate message of this issue that takes Tom King 22 pages to explain to us and go, hey, you loved those Peanuts comics as a kid, didn't you? You thought they were pretty funny, didn't you? Till you got older and realized, man, shit's depressing.
Right? Once you start to maybe feel some sort of kinship with Charlie Brown, you kind of know you're in trouble.
He is the boy for which nothing ever works out. His football is always pulled away. He's prematurely balding, and he's like 10.
And the redheaded girl just doesn't have time for him.
It's true. It really is. And I mean, and much like the character from whom he shares a name with, Kite Man is equally sad and depressing, and he is jerked around by the three major factions of this story: Batman, the Joker, and Riddler. Batman gets his hooks into him, does the classic, hanging him off a building, where's Joker? Find Joker for me.
Yep.
To which he didn't really know because he had to go to Deadshot for information.
Yeah.
Deadshot, who is now working for the Joker, who apparently he and a bunch of other villains joined Joker and Riddler's respective teams in between issues.
Right, and of course it struck me that Charles here could find Deadshot pretty easily.
Yeah.
Like, all right, sure.
I think they imply that, like, before he became Kite Man, he was some sort of villainous inventor or something.
He implied that he had been on a team. He was a wind specialist. He's an aerodynamic specialist. And he was on a team that helped build the Joker mobile. And Joker killed everybody else, but left him alive.
He's got a very particular set of skills, don't you know?
Exactly.
Mostly involving wind and air drag. So, he tries to get a meeting with the Joker. He's fed bad information. He ends up getting kidnapped by the Riddler, who has Clayface working for him. Which, again, what the fuck did Riddler have to offer Clayface to join his team?
Right?
What does Nigma have that he wants?
I don't know. Like, the thing, like, in the earlier issue with Poison Ivy and him, I'm like, they're the same colors.
And I mean, he kind of makes a point to being like, well, if Joker and me go to war, the city will burn. That includes your plants. And I'm like, all right, I think Pamela has an okay job defending her own plants, but whatever.
Hang on, but wildfires are often very, helping to the natural environment because it gives the earth a chance to be reborn, and smaller plants that normally couldn't grow due to the, tall canopies created by trees, a chance to blossom and bloom. So wouldn't she potentially be okay with that?
Yeah, wouldn't she be the one striking the match? Yeah, I mean, you bring up a valid point here. So yeah, Chuck gets jerked around intensely throughout the course of this issue. We find out that the only good thing he has going for him in his life is his little son, Charlie Jr., of which they love to fly kites together. Yeah. And apparently it's little Charlie Jr. who comes up with the oh-so-meme-worthy Kite Man, hell yeah! He was the one. He got it from his kid. And then his kid dies.
Yep.
Yes.
Via poison kite string.
Yeah, which made me laugh. I'm like, really? Poison kite string? I guess Riddler gets the same child-grade poison that Walter White gets in Breaking Bad. It's poison just for murdering children.
Right? Which is I get it. I'm guessing it was via the skin. But there was a quick second which I was like, does his kid put the kite string in his mouth?
I thought the same thing, and that's wrong. And Batman's like, oh, shit. Sorry, Chuck. I guess I shouldn't have gotten you to do all that stuff. An innocent person died, and I was somewhat responsible. I mean, I guess I'll get vengeance for your son. And Kite Man's like, nah, not good enough. This has completely broken me. I will build a kite glider and a kite suit. I will then swear my allegiance to the Joker in this war, even though it's like, well, the Joker kind of fucked you over just as much as everyone else. He just saved you at one point to further fuck you over. Mm-hmm. I mean, really, if you wanted revenge, I guess it makes sense, strength in numbers and everything, but it's just kind of weird.
Yeah, I agree.
I couldn't decide if I thought this issue was secretly brilliant or if I thought Tom King was secretly trolling us all.
I'm just, it really just comes down to, again, just the break. This random, the Ballad of Kite Man. Part
Yep.
1.
Oh, was it really part 1?
It's what the title credit said at the end. The Ballad
Oh,
of Kite
God.
Man, Part 1.
Oh,
Which
my.
means, are we getting another break later on? Like, are we gonna? All right, now we're getting back into Wojar. We're gonna talk about truly the war of jokes and riddles. We're gonna go right back into it. Here we go, and then later on, part 2 is just gonna sneak up and just, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's, usually, and this is funny because this is usually something I'm so into. Because I love stories about D-list schmucky villains going about their schmucky lives, just trying to get one over, just trying to live and everything. Like, I loved Superior Foes of Spider-Man. I love it when they do this with other characters. But all right, I should have liked this Kite Man story. But I think it's the fact that every so often Tom King has to step on in and be like, oh, look at these cool supervillain fights on the news. Look at these cool supervillain fights in the background. Oh, the real story happens in the margins, guys.
Right? Yeah, I don't know. This feels like the Kite Man story felt like just Tom King kind of stretching his muscles a little bit, being like, no, see, I can kind of do as I please here.
Yeah, that this is like a power move for him being like, look, I'm going to make a whole issue about Kite Man,
He's
and you're going to read
important.
it, and you're going to like it.
And here's the thing. At the end of the day, if Kite Man turns out to be the key to this whole thing...
Oh, man.
This just makes me question everything.
It really does. And then I'm reminded, like, well, didn't Snyder make a big deal about Clue Master in Eternal, that Clue Master was the guy who tied everything together?
Right?
But at least Clue Master is the father of the much more interesting, much more beloved Spoiler, so he's kind of important.
So yeah, there you go, guys. Batman, was it number 27? Number 20? I'm always confused.
It was 27.
Everything's always slightly off over in DC based on the week. Like, it's like, we had this, and then, yeah, okay, whatever. So Batman number 27. If you were reading War of Jokes and Riddles, and I gotta tell you, I didn't read any of the solicits for this, so I was a little surprised to see where this was going, and of course the title card came right at the end, and I was like, oh.
I mean, I guess it wouldn't be much of a stretch to call it the best Kite Man story ever told, because that's a pretty low bar.
That's the thing to put on this.
Joel of the Poll says, the best Kite Man story ever told.
The greatest Kite Man story you'll ever read until part 2.
Yeah, really, where they really up the ante. I think, like, even not to just, like, put my fanboyish stuff aside for a second, Tom King definitely adds a lot of pathos to the character. He definitely adds a lot of tragedy, which is good when you're, doing, like, from a ground-up origin. I don't think he put any sympathy in there, though. Like, I feel more sympathetic for other D-list supervillains. I didn't really feel sympathetic for Chuck Brown, because it's like, dude, you brought this on yourself every step of the way. This was all your fault.
Right? Here's my question, okay, about Charles here. Did you have a child prior to working with the Joker or after? Because if you had it prior, you can't help that, right? If you had it afterwards, that's just irresponsible, because you worked with the Joker. There's no way this is not coming around to bite you.
It's true. And like, again, if they want to do the thing where it's like, oh, well, I had a baby on the way, I really needed the money, I knew it was wrong, but I had to do it, that's sympathy.
Right?
That's like something I would actually feel sympathetic for. But they don't do that, and they show that he's kind of a shithead who drinks at the bad guy bar every night. And, like, it's just, he just genuinely didn't seem like a nice person, is the thing. So I don't feel bad for his tragedy. And I feel like just a couple little tweaks and changes would have made me care a little bit more.
Have you ever heard the tragedy of Kite Man?
Yeah, apparently so. Yeah, the tragedy of Kite Man the Jerk.
Or Kite Man. Hell yeah.
Yeah,
well, we'll see. I'm guessing part 2 is going to really be like Kite Man Year 1.
Get really into the nitty gritty about what made him, maybe see his childhood, maybe see his time in school where he really developed.
Exactly. So there you go, guys. That was Batman. We'll see what happens. Hopefully we'll just kind of get back into this story. I know War of Jokes and Riddles hasn't been, or Wojar hasn't been for everybody, but we're going to keep following along with it and see what happens. And that was pretty much it, except that, dig this, gang.
I'm digging.
I read an Aquaman comic.
No shit.
I think I've read one other Aquaman comic in my life, but I read Aquaman number 26 this week. And get this, it was fun.
Yeah. I mean, I know they're making a big deal about the art they changed around.
Yeah, it's an interesting about the art. It's really cool, except the coloring's really bizarre and not always the best, and cut some corners here and there. But it is loose and kind of flowy, which kind of works for underwater. When I read this book, I gotta tell you, it was like finding a TV show that like is on mid-season. I have no idea what's going on, but like everyone says I should I should watch it, and it's cool, and I do, and I kind of am like, oh yeah, cool, yeah, like this was fun. You're right, and it did a decent job of just being like, hey, we don't care if you have or have not read an Aquaman comic before, but I could figure out what was going on based on context clues because I can use those to figure it out. I gotta tell you, part of why I wanted to do this was Mera was in it, and I like Mera as a character.
She's cool.
Even if I don't read Aquaman comics, I like the idea of her and what I've heard about her, and I honestly, her design I think is very cool. And Dolphin was in this.
Yes,
Dolphin.
The big return of Dolphin. They brought back both the Aqua lads, so yeah, I gotta bring back Dolphin now.
Right, what I love about Dolphin is that she has this bioluminescent hair, which I'm like, that has nothing to do with dolphins, but who cares?
Comics!
Who cares? Just, whatever. It doesn't matter. But, I gotta tell you, like, coming into this not knowing much about what's been going on in the Aquaman comics, I really did a decent job of, like, being like, it's cool. They explained about Mera. They explained about her powers. They really kind of, like really put together this police procedural that was going on in a way where, like, there was, like, a high-speed chase going on to catch, this Aquaman, who may or may not be Aquaman.
Is Aquaman in the outs with Atlantis again? I know I was a couple arcs behind.
Everyone believes that Arthur Curry is dead.
Of course they do. They do this every couple years with Aquaman. It's like, well, what if he was an enemy of Atlantis for a bit?
No, they think he is dead, and, like, not, like, in the, like, yes, he's an enemy, but in as much that, like, they think he's dead. This gentleman named Wrath has taken control of Atlantis and put up this, like, crown of thorns around it so nobody can get in, and Mera is laying siege upon that to get in. And there's a guy running around who looks like Arthur Curry. Is it him? Is it not? I'm sure people are reading it no, but I didn't, and I thought that was kind of neat. That's kind of where Dolphin comes into play because she's a mutant, essentially.
Right. And
there are others who are also like her, and they are under siege because they don't care for that. They want the pure Atlantean there. Thank you very much.
Which is funny because that used to be some shit Aquaman had said against him because he was blonde and an Atlantean, and they thought that was a mutation back in the day.
Right. But there are plenty of people who would like to see Aquaman back because this guy's kind of scary. Overall, again, the art style is really cool. Like, I swear I've seen this artist before on other things, and it's like that was kind of neat for me. I was like, I think I know you. I'm gonna have to look you up later on, but I like their faces and the way that they like draw anatomy. It's very neat. But I didn't care for some of the coloring, and of course by the end of this, they tease, of course, every time what is coming next, and that is Crushed with a K because Crush is in this. So nice. I was like, haha! I kind of liked a lot of the like just hand wavy, like, look, you're reading an Aquaman comic. There's a lot of sea stuff going on. Get over it. I'm like, fair enough. I can. So I was like really surprised how much I enjoyed Aquaman. And now I'm like, I kind of want to maybe go and get some of the other ones, but I kind of just want to keep going and just figure it out as I go. So.
Aquaman under Abnett had been solid because the dude had a history with the character before, clearly loved the universe, and is clearly bringing back a lot of his old ideas.
There you go. I'm surprised, but we were all kind of talking about Dolphin and stuff like that, and there was so much kind of chatter going on, and the fact I knew Mera was going to be in this, I'm like, I'm going to grab it. $3? I'll grab it, check it out, and I was not disappointed. So there you go, good. Aqua lads and ladettes. Aquaman number 26. I had fun.
It was pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly. I need like some surfer talk. Like I don't know any.
Shaka bra.
Shaka, no. It totally crushed it. Such waves. All right, anyway.
Ride the Rit, bro.
All I can think of is Fishy Joe's Ride the Walrus. But there you go, guys. That was the poll. No indie this week. I didn't get a chance to read it. I am going to finish reading Winnebago number 2. I chose to read Aquaman, which was independent for me in a way, but it's not at all. But we will be back with more comics and chatter, all that stuff next week, where we may or may not have a special guest, but we'll talk more about that as it gets closer, because of course with schedules and stuff like that, we are pretty sure that will happen, but we can't be 100%, and we don't want to get everybody's hopes up, and then it doesn't happen. So we'll see what all turns up about that. Yeah. No, we're not talking about Super Sons this week. It's not. We're at the hour. It's the hour.
There's a lot of books. Couldn't read that one yet.
There's more than I thought to talk about this week, and we didn't. San Diego Comic-Con's going on. Just go check that out. Show is over. go look at all the releases and the news and the trailers and stuff like that.
That's what we're gonna do.
Right. Also, special thank you to the person who I know who was at San Diego Comic-Con, who was very kind person, and picked up a hard copy of God Country for me.
Nice.
I would pay them for this, but thank you so much, because I really wanted that.
That's a good find.
Yeah. It was Ashley Victoria Robinson. She went and got that for me.
Oh.
I can't even tell you how thankful I am to her for
That's
doing
sweet.
that, because I really, really wanted it. I'm sure they might have it elsewhere, but if they didn't, I would have been so sad that I didn't ask if they could do that. So thank you so much. No, I wasn't going to push it with the Gus. I really wanted that too, but it was one or the other. It looked like a beautiful hardcover version of it, so I went with that instead. So there you go. Thank you guys so much for watching and hanging out and taking time away from all the news that's coming out of San Diego Comic-Con to sit here and talk about comics with us. That's awesome. And don't forget that if you want to go and find out more about Joel, you can get over to his Twitter at KabeJoel, see what he's doing. It's cool and super and comic themed.
Thank you.
I gotta come up with better things that aren't amazing and spectacular, because it's immediately where I go. It's
amazing, spectacular, uncanny, web of, astonishing.
It's Rebirth and New 52.
There you go. It's TCU.
I don't know. But you can find it over there, and if you want to find out more about me, you can go over to Twitter at @TheRealZoobs, and don't forget to come back every Tuesday for the Weekly Pull, where we talk about comic book news and pop culture news and all kinds of crazy cool things that are going on. And every Thursday, to hang out with us and talk about comics.
Mm-hmm. And if you really like the show, you should go to thepodcastawards.com if you haven't already, and you should vote for this show, as well as the Weekly Pull and the Elseworlds Exchange. We're nominated in a series of different categories, and you only have till the end of the month to vote for us, to put us over, and help us win. We really like our odds, and we know with a fan base like yours, we can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, if you want to have more comic book conversations with the community, with the people you're chatting with right now, go over to the Discord, where you can continue talking about comics and other things, or more things going on in the Weekly Pull Discord, comics, media, movies, TV, anime, all that kind of stuff. You can keep chatting over there. Absolutely. Just go do it. They'll put a thing in, I think. Someone put there it is. Hooray. Thank you. But guys, have an awesome weekend, and if you are like me and in a place where it is super warm right now, stay cool and watch out for thunderstorms.
Yeah.
We'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.